If you've been following a generic stretching routine and not really getting the results that you have expected, it could be because as a person with scoliosis, you need stretches that are a little bit more tailored to you as the individual. You may be spending a lot of time stretching areas that maybe don't really need it. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you how you can test your muscles to see which ones need stretching and which ones actually may need something else, like strengthening. Welcome back to the Strength and Spine YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Beth Terranova. I am a scoliosis specialist physical therapist and a person with scoliosis myself. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about why general stretching can feel nice, but as people with scoliosis, we need something that's a little bit more targeted to exactly where we need to focus. Because we may have muscles that are already flexible and don't need more stretching, and we might have muscles that do need stretching because of the alignment of our curves and how that is affecting it. So how do we use precise testing to determine where to focus? Maybe you had a similar scenario to me. Before I became a physical therapist and I was competing in weightlifting, I wanted to find a stretching routine that was going to help me with some of the muscle soreness that I was experiencing. So I went to physical therapy, and the physical therapist gave me a list of stretches that were basically the same as everyone else in the clinic, even though that they were maybe having different issues or different problems with their back. So I started doing those stretches, and some of them felt like they were helping and some of them felt like they weren't really doing too much. Being that I was in school, I was doing my weight training, and I was commuting all over the city, I didn't really have a lot of time to be able to do stretches that weren't really doing anything for me. And you might feel like you're in that hamster wheel right now where you're doing stretches that you're not sure whether they're making really a difference. Maybe they feel good for a few minutes, but then your muscles just go back and tighten right back up. So when we're looking at where you need to stretch, the first thing that we need to do is test the muscles. And if you go back to my previous video, I talk about using testing for passive range of motion versus active range of motion. Just as a recap, passive range of motion is how far you can stretch a muscle when you're using assistance, like a stretching strap or a yoga band to be able to pull, let's use the example of your hamstring further up to the ceiling. Whereas active range of motion talks about how far you can move just using your muscles. So that would be, instead of using the strap, using the muscles of your leg to lift your leg up as much as you can in a straight position. It's important to do this testing because if you have adequate passive range of motion, then it's not necessary, or it may not be helpful to do additional stretching. It may actually be more helpful to strengthen that muscle. If you have adequate motion, what is a normal range of motion for your day-to-day or the sport that you want to do, you don't have to spend extra time necessarily stretching that muscle. It's already got the flexibility that you need. Maybe that muscle is feeling tight or tense because it doesn't have the strength to do the activity that you want to do. And that's where, if the passive range of motion is matching the test, the active range of motion might need a little bit of work. That's where strengthening comes in to make a big difference. The other thing that's important to test is to actually compare side to side, because with scoliosis, we have asymmetries of muscle lengths as well as muscle strengths side to side related to the curvature of the spine and how that affects the alignment of the pelvis, the shoulders. So you may notice that actually one side has good flexibility and the other side doesn't have good flexibility. I find this a lot in the shoulders for people who have thoracic curves. Sometimes their shoulder on the concave side of their curve will be very flexible, but their shoulder on the convex side, where their curve is more prominent, may not move as much because the muscles have tightened in a different way than the other side. So it's always good to test, but also test both sides as a comparison to notice any differences between your flexibility of your joints side to side. Once you've started testing your different muscle lengths and looked at passive and active range of motion for those different muscle groups, you can start to create a stretching program and a strengthening program that is specifically tailored to the areas that you need to work on. Because even if you have the same shape curve as someone, you may have other comorbidities or other things that happened in the history of your body that affect the movement of your shoulders, your hips, other areas around your spine. Let's say, for example, you have a thoracic curve, but maybe you've also had a shoulder surgery. That can affect the flexibility of a shoulder different than someone who has the exact same thoracic curve. And this is why each individual should do their own test to determine where they need to stretch and where they need to strengthen. This was really important to me when I created our Stretching with Scoliosis course, because I didn't just want to throw out a bunch of random stretches for people with scoliosis to do. I wanted to empower people with scoliosis to know exactly what stretches were going to be the most targeted for them as an individual. So even though people with similar curve types may need some similar stretching routine, not everybody is exactly the same. And that's why if you go into our Stretching with Scoliosis course, we go through tests for each muscle group so that you can create the stretching routine that is the most individualized to you, working on stretching and strengthening the areas that you need, down to which side of your body needs more than the other. Our Stretching with Scoliosis course starts with a really nice background information about scoliosis itself. How do the three dimensions of scoliosis affect your alignment, your ability to stretch, and also the flexibility or the mobility of your muscles? From there, you also learn about things to consider whether you've had a spinal fusion, whether you are someone who is hypermobile, so that you can have that in your mind when you're starting to create your stretching routine. Then we go through individual tests of stretching different muscle groups in the upper body and the lower body to look at where specifically you need to work. So you'll go through and do the test and see what the typical range of motion looks like. And from that, you can determine whether you need to improve your passive range of motion with more stretching, or if you need to improve your active range of motion with more strengthening. By the end of the course, the goal is that you have a stretching routine that considers more than your scoliosis. It considers your entire body, and it gives you something that you can work on where you know you're going to get tangible results. And if you're not sure how to track those results, go back to my previous video, I'll share the link here, where you can also keep track of your stretching routine and learn how to stay motivated on your stretching routine. So if you're tired of random stretches and spinning your wheels, the link to the course is in the description of this video, as well as the first pinned comment. Using the link in the description of this video will give you a special offer to get the stretching course for 80% off. We've discounted it down to $27. You can have access to the entire scoliosis and stretching education, as well as the ability to test for yourself your own individual muscles and make your customized stretching routine. If you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments what you want me to focus on in our next series of videos related to exercise and fitness with scoliosis.